Hello, friends. This is your friend Kenzie Dodds, and I am joined by my friend Sara Vieira. Say hi, Sara.
Hi, everyone.
So, Sarah's coming at us from Portugal. Super excited to chat with her. She is a fabulous person to interact with. Whether actually, we haven't met in person, have we?
No, I was at JS Heroes the only time you came to Europe.
Yeah, that was a bummer. I did come to Europe. Actually, it was Amsterdam again. Um, like 4 years ago for an Angular JS conference. That was cool. But yeah, so I've only been to Europe twice. But anyway, hopefully one day we'll meet in
Yeah,
person. But interacting online has been a pleasure, and so I'm excited to chat with you today. I One of the things that I really like about Sarah is how she is very like down to earth and practical, and not willing to put up with fake people. I guess just really um, I don't know, really enjoyable and yeah, down to earth, I guess, is the way to say that. So, anyway, Sarah, I'd like you to introduce yourself a little bit for people who don't know you. You don't have to tell us all about your developer career if you don't want to. You can give us a little more who you are as a person, who you see yourself as. So, can you give us a little intro to yourself?
sure. So, my name is Sarah. As you said, I am a developer at Code Sandbox. I live in Berlin for the past 6 months. I come from Portugal. There's only 10 million of us, so we gotta enjoy every single one of us that we have. Yeah, we're those weird people that when we meet someone else from Portugal on the street, we're like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" It's like there's like 10 of us. It's adorable. Um,
Cool.
as if for personal stuff, I am really into horrible movies. I really like them for some for godforsaken reason. I think it's because I've always liked horror and thriller movies, but most of them are crap. So I've watched so many crap movies that now
Mm.
I actually enjoy them because of trying to watch good like thriller movies. I also play drums, and I don't know. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All cool stuff. So how long have you been into the drums? Is that like a recent thing, or have you always been into drums?
Actually, I started learning when I was about I think I was 16.
Hmm.
Then when I moved to London about 2 years ago, I stopped and then bought a drum kit when I settled back here again. I started learning when I was 16. I remember that I had to because my mom didn't was like, that's not a girl thing, only boys play drums. And she was like, you have to tell me three girl drum players. And
Mhm.
to this day, do you remember Mika, that songwriter? It's-
That
Uh,
sounds, yeah, I think so.
yeah, so like his songs were not really my style, but his drummer was a girl. So to this day, I thank Mika because he was the third. And my mom
You
allowed
could
me to
have
play the drums.
you could have just said, you know what, mom, I will be the third. And
That didn't work for her.
no,
It's
no.
because I was already in football and stuff like that, and she was just like, "You're going down a slippery slope there, Sarah."
Well, I'm glad that you do what you want, and I find that it's actually interesting. Like lots of developers have some connection to music, and there's got to be something there between music and software programming, because yeah, lots of people that I talk to have some like tangential connection to creating music, which is cool.
Yeah, I've actually heard a lot of people that say that developers are usually just failed musicians. Jason
All right,
Langsdorff, the developer advocate for Gatsby, actually had an emo
mm,
band back in the day, which is honestly not
that
bad
does
because I
not
still
surprise me at all.
it at all. But you need to look at this. I forgot the name. I will look it up on Spotify as I speak.
That's
But
awesome.
and I have a friend of mine who used to be a hip hop artist. She spoke at React Amsterdam even. Elizabeth. She used to. She was actually signed by Sony or something. She actually
Yeah,
used
yeah.
to be like
She performed on stage at React Amsterdam. Her talk was awesome. It was very, very cool. She did like this freestyle thing. It was very cool.
yeah, but it wasn't
Um,
it wasn't in
cool.
Portuguese. I think it was right. Was it in
Yeah,
English?
yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Portuguese. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. Um, cool. So I'm excited to chat with you about a couple of things we talked about in before the show started. What we want to kind of communicate to the audience. And one of those things that we kind of talked about a little bit was how easy it is to build software. Like, so easy. Like, I don't know why people have a hard time and complain. Is that accurate, Sarah?
Yes, I feel like you just really just need to install Create React app and everything is fixed for you. I think I think this is mostly the people who grew up in harder times of software who now are they can't for their sake they can't understand that things may be hard for other people.
Mm,
And so we get a lot of people being like, you should just use Gatsby. It's super easy to do things with Gatsby. But it's not like it is easy if you have experience with React and GraphQL and really like configs, and it's just a bunch of stuff that you need to know beforehand before
mhm,
Gatsby is easy. And I feel like there's this huge problem in like at least the front end community. I'm not sure about the rest of the communities where we diminish things and like we take the accomplishment out of learning something of people because that thing was always
mm,
supposed to be easy. So people aren't actually as proud as they used to be to actually learn something because people are like, oh, you only learn this now? Oh, I've known this for three
mm.
years. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's cool for you. Can you shut up now? That would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Can you stop being?
Yeah. For
Damn
real.
it. I was like,
I
I was
totally
trying to look for a word, but I couldn't find any that wasn't a curse word, Kent.
no, you're good. I totally agree with you. I think that it's, like, especially for these people who were in working in software when things were legitimately like quite hard. I think that it's pretty, I guess, easy for them to think that, oh wow, like we've got it so easy now. Can you imagine like implementing code splitting before Webpack? Like, are you kidding me? But like it's not easy to learn software at all. Like from the very beginning, you have a lot of things and knowledge that you have to accumulate before you even know what could even have code splitting explained to you effectively, as just as an example. So, and I love what you said about how like calling something easy kind of diminishes people's accomplishment at learning something new, which is not a nice thing, and it also demotivates people from learning the things that they want to learn. So I appreciate that you shared that.
There's also one thing they said about code splitting actually made me think that sometimes the analogies that people make don't really make a lot of sense because someone can come to us and be like, oh, imagine how hard it would be to implement code splitting 10 years ago. And you'd be like, you would only have jQuery 10 years ago. You would not
Yeah.
need code splitting. Your entire app would have been PHP or Java. It would not have been JavaScript. I mean, you could have tried, but there was no point to it. But it's so much easier now. It just exists now because of necessity.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I feel like that is I like I've worked through the jQuery slums, and I honestly to this day I love jQuery because when jQuery said he would do something, he would just do it. It wouldn't lie to me. It wouldn't be weird about things. You would slide down and the thing would slide down, and that would be it. You would install a plugin and it would work sometimes. But I think the main issue is that we make assumptions that are not good. And we also sometimes make assumptions, for example, that if you know React, you know Redux, which is just an example, but they're very coupled together. And if you put me in front of a Redux app right now, I haven't touched Redux in a long time. I won't know it, probably. I won't know how to use that.
Mm.
And we should just try and see where people have limitations or don't have limitations instead of sometimes assuming that if you know one thing you will probably know the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to be said too for um, like sometimes people will say, "Hey, I released this new library and it's super easy to use." When what they mean instead of easy is actually familiar. And so maybe it's easy for you because you've used libraries like this in the past. But it's not easy for me because I know nothing about observables or generators or
Yes.
whatever it is that this thing is. And so, like, no, it's not easy. It's just familiar.
Yeah, one of the examples that I have is that I've never done a lot of animations that have not been with CSS, and now I'm doing the
Hmm.
animation for the new homepage of Code Sandbox, and I'm
Woo!
using GSAP. Yay! And GSAP is supposed to be the easiest one, and I'm still staring at my computer like, what the hell am I doing? I have no idea
Hmm.
what's going on. It doesn't mean that that one is hard, but I don't know any other one. So to me, it's all new, and I'm just like, what? What?
Hmm.
I do not
Yeah,
understand what this
animations.
means.
Yeah, for real, animations for me is like something that's way like I really struggle with. So,
Oh yeah,
good luck with that.
where is Sarah
I,
Drasner when we need Sarah Drasner?
yeah, for real. Like she just made her new website, and that animation on the homepage, I think it's sarah.dev. Yeah, like for real. And it is outrageously cool.
We see that. I haven't
She's
seen
an
that.
amazing person. And her yeah, her animations there are just out of this world. Very cool.
See, I would not, I didn't, I, if, I don't even know how to start with this.
I know, right? It's crazy.
It's just one of those
Uh,
things that I'm like, that looks so cool. If I were to do this, I would do it. I don't know how.
yeah, yeah.
Is this actual
It's
text? Oh my god, if you,
um
oh my god. This is so cool. If you,
yeah,
I have no idea.
you
No.
hover over it and it like blasts out. It's outrageously cool. So yeah, like and for Sarah, like that, I'm gonna guess that for Sarah that took a fair amount of time, and I'll just say that because it makes me feel better. But she's been doing this for a long time, and so I imagine that like it was relatively easy. Like if I were to try that, it'd be impossible. But I think that if I put as much, actually um, this kind of works for me as an analogy. Like I
Yeah.
remember hearing the story of this really famous piano player who was just like super super good, been playing, traveling and stuff. And somebody came to them and said, you know what, I would give like my life, like 10 years of my life or 20 years of my life to play as good as you play at the piano. And the piano player said, well, I did do that. I did give 20 years of my life so that I could be good at this. And I think that's the same for like lots of people are really good at things is they just put in the time. And so like whether for musicians, they're practicing a lot. For software developers who are really like build awesome animations or are able to create really cool APIs or whatever it is, it's because they've done it a lot. I don't think that there's anybody who just gets a special gene and they magically are super good at software development. I
Yeah.
think everybody has to put in the time
I,
and build
I
stuff.
don't think there's a talent for software development. I feel like most of it is like if you ask me to do something simple, I'm doing quotes, but there's no video in the podcast, like
Mhm.
a simple React app, I could maybe take 30 minutes. And that's not because I have a talent, because I have made a lot of React apps. And if you tell me you need to make this
Mm,
Angular app, I would probably take the same app. I would take like 3 hours because I've never used it, because I put a long time on
mm,
trying to learn the APIs of React and not a long time into learning the APIs of Angular. I think Vue would stand right there in the
mhm.
middle. It took me like an hour. This also reminds me of a thing, which is that you hire like an electrician to come to your house or something because something is broken, and they charge you like $100 to fix to just unplug a cable or something. And you ask them, "Why are you charging me $100
Mhm.
to unplug a cable?" And they're like, "Okay, so $5 is for the cable, and 95 is for all the time that I had to spend to know which cable to unplug." And I feel like it's the
Mhm.
exact same thing. I
Yeah.
think most of the biggest issues that I fixed over my life in code have been one line of code. Just one line of code makes everything work, and it's not a talent. It's just staring at a lot of computers for a long time.
Yeah, for real. I think there is really no shortcut to experience. It just comes naturally as you yeah, as you work on it a lot. And I that that actually your electrician story kind of reminds me of my talk at React Amsterdam. I told a story about how we had a faucet that was not working properly. Like the head would come out of the neck so that you could like direct the water where you want it to go, and then it would automatically go back into the head. You just like, oh, it goes back into the head. Well, it stopped
Fancy.
going back into the head automatically, and that was super annoying. You had to like help it go back up, and we called a plumber because this was a brand new faucet. We'd never had this faucet before. We called a plumber, and they were going to come. And the day that they were going to come, I was like, why is this not working? So I looked under the hood, and there's this a hose that goes, from the neck into, like, our plumbing, whatever. And the hose has a weight on it, and that weight pulls
Hmm.
the head back into the neck. And the hose was just twisted up, and so the weight couldn't pull it down. And so I just untwisted it, and then boom, everything's working again. And I saved myself like $50 or something, and like a crazy amount of embarrassment because it was really easy to fix. But the reason I bring that up is because I think, things that we look at and we think they are really hard. Um, yes, it might take you a lot of time and some patience to get into it, but when you dig into it and take the time, you find out that it's not magic. It's just code. And when you dive into it and start to work with the abstractions that you're using, then it becomes more natural to you, and it becomes familiar. And so you're able to use those kinds of abstractions more effectively.
That was, I think, literally what happened to me when I started working on Code Sandbox. As in, to me, it was completely magic.
Hmm.
It was like the Visual Studio Code part is still magic to me. But all of the fact that that app entirely existed was magic. And then I started
Hmm.
looking at it and it was just like, oh, it's just one big eval. Everything is a form, and that's about it. And it's just a bunch of state, like every single app, but it's just bigger.
Hmm.
And I think it's important that we look behind the magic. Yeah.
So, one of the things that I like about kind of where our conversation has gone is, um, how, like, building things is where you're going to get that experience, like taking the time to dig into Code Sandbox, or spending the time so
Yeah.
that you know what the one line of code change needs to be. Um, and you build a lot of really interesting things, kind of just for fun, as well as, like, now you're working on Code Sandbox, a legit app that has changed my life in wonderful ways. um, so, like, not everybody can just wake up in the morning and say, hey, I want to build Code Sandbox. Lots of the things that we get lots of pleasure and value out of, are these kind of silly apps that we can build, or simple things that we can create to make our lives a little easier. So one question that I get a lot, because I tell people, build things, that's how you get your experience a lot. But I always get this question, how do I know what to build? And so, as a purveyor of building many things, Sarah, what advice would you give to people who want to just build stuff, but they don't, like, they have a hard time finding ideas of what to build?
One of the things that I used a lot was this public list by Todd Motto, the our Angular guide. He has a list of public APIs, which most of them don't actually require authentication. And a good thing is that you will get to, if you just type public APIs GitHub, I think it'll be the first one that shows up. It's a huge list of public APIs. Most of them don't require authentication. And the good thing about this is that you'll get experience with async JavaScript, which, let's be honest, most JavaScript will continue to go into the direction of being async. So it's good that you get experience with that. And you
Hmm.
also build something. And there's always one
Hmm.
thing that I realized, there's always some little thing that annoys you about something, about just general life, that you can probably fix
Hmm.
in a weekend. Also, build small things. One thing that before I
Hmm.
started really making a lot of stuff, I would actually start making a lot of stuff, but I would never finish it. So I told myself that I only build things that would take a max of a weekend, not including nights. So it would be a max of like
Hmm.
10 to 12 hours. So that way I could sit down and
Hmm.
build the thing and get it done with, instead of trying to build a huge thing then never actually getting it accomplished. So I actually learned a lot by just making small things. Also, just things that, for example, a really random thing about Portugal that is actually always doesn't make it. And I will tell you the thing and it'll be like, that doesn't make any sense. And I'll be like, yes. So the Uber website is blocked. The app is not, but the website is. And Uber is legal. So there is Uber. It's completely legal, but the app is not blocked. But on Vodafone, which is a very common operator in Europe, the website is blocked, which doesn't make any sense. Yeah, and but the thing is,
Huh.
this was last year when I still lived in Port.
Yeah.
This is still blocked. If I try to access it on my mobile data, it still doesn't work. But last year when I traveled a lot, I kept searching if there's Uber somewhere, and I couldn't check the website because it was blocked, which was just very frustrating. So once I went to, I don't even know where, I crawled the entire Uber website and I downloaded a JSON file and put it on the internet and made a website called "Is there Uber in?" And then you type a city and it will tell you if there's Uber in that city without having to go to the API of. They have no API for this. Without having to go to Uber, because I couldn't do it because the Uber website was blocked. So now it also has like Cabify and Lyft and a lot of others. But also that's how I learned how to scrape websites.
Hmm.
So that's good. Yeah. And like there's also always small
Mhm.
things that you can go around it. I mean, don't break the law. In this case, I'm not accessing the Uber website. In this case, it's also stupid. But
Mhm.
like, don't find a way to watch illegal TV shows. But if there's something that you're like, I could fix this with just 2 hours, try and fix that because you will get a way huger boost out of doing that because it will also help yourself. And then just tell some friends, try to make it better over time,
Mhm.
post it on Product Hunt. And weirdly enough, you don't have to have a huge app to post on Product Hunt. That app was on Product Hunt and it was like number 3 or 4 of the day. You can actually post small things on Product Hunt. Yeah. And you get like really good feedback from that, which is really nice.
Yeah, the interesting thing about, like, cool products is how successful a product is has nothing to do with how
Yeah.
big that particular solution is. It has everything to do with the amount of value that solution provides to the world. And so, and the amount of value does not necessarily have only correlate to the size of the solution.
And the
Um,
money of the solution. I never made any
mm,
money from this. But if you think about it, it's hosted on Netlify. I also don't
mm,
pay anything for this.
yeah. Thank you, Netlify.
Thank you,
Ah,
Netlify
love
gods.
Netlify.
They're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's great advice, especially to build small things, because I often find myself, having ambitious ideas and exciting, ideas for products that I wanna build, and I yeah, I definitely lose motivation after
Yeah.
a little while when it takes a long time to build, and I gotta move on to other stuff. But especially, like, if somebody wanted to learn, GreenSock or something like that, then to do animations, and they could do, I don't know, you could make a simple app that is like an index of, um, you know MDN articles or something, something that's just totally not the it's not technically hard to build, and you just overcomplicate one aspect of
Yeah.
it, for the purpose of
Yeah.
learning, that thing.
Also, I think one good idea.
So I'm gonna take.
Sorry. I think one thing that I've started doing is to get huge tables out of Wikipedia. You get that huge table, you make it into a JSON, and you provide it in a fancy form to people, and people get amazed by that.
Mm.
So I got a huge table out of Wikipedia that was just all the TLDs that exist in the world, made it into a website, and made it like way nicer than Wikipedia, for example. And you learn a lot by doing it. You just overcomplicate the JSON file. I think is honestly a good way of learning things. Is you get a
Mhm.
JSON file and you're like, how can I make this super hard?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and especially, like, it'd be the nice thing about that too is you don't have to worry about a whole bunch of, you know, like, giant
Yeah.
architectural decisions for how am I gonna build the app, how am I gonna structure the files, how am I
What
gonna,
database am I going to use?
whatever else, like, what Babel plugins do I need to include? Yeah, 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 just take something really simple, and then think about what is the thing I wanna
Yeah.
learn, and overcomplicate a part
That's
of the
great
simple
advice, actually.
thing
That's really
so
good
that you can
advice.
learn that. Yeah,
Also, if you
I
want to
like
use a
that.
database and if you want to be real fast,
Yeah,
I will suggest
that's cool.
Airtable.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I used it. I tried to use it for something, didn't really work out, but I was very impressed. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, it's actually pretty. Their API is pretty decent. You can also do it by just fetch calls instead of using their actual JavaScript
Mm,
API, which is still callback based. So you can just use like normal Axios or fetch calls, and you can just put things and get things. And if you want a simple database, just want a list of stuff, and you want people to be able to add to that list of stuff, it's actually way nicer than having to set up your own database. I think in my that's my opinion of what I used. Of for example, we use Airtable on Code but we use Airtable for the feedback form that we have. And there was a time when we only supported
mm,
Site 1 that we weren't sure how many people actually use Site 2, that we had a thing that said like, for now we only support Site 1. If you would like us to support Site 2, please click the button below. And that would basically just put your username or the timestamp, if you were not signed in, into an Airtable. It would count the number of records and tell you 271 people want side two. And when it reached like 300, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I guess I need to do this now.
Yeah.
But it's also a nice way to get feedback from people, is just to use an Airtable to do that. Makes sense? Does that
Yeah,
make
yeah, for
sense?
sure.
You'll look confusion.
No, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, Airtable is nice, and definitely anything is better than setting up your own database. So, for
Yes.
real. I mean, maybe we've got some
Because
people.
you can't deploy that to Netlify yet.
Yeah, that is so true. Maybe that's why. You know what? I actually was using Hasura the other day to set up my own GraphQL database, and I was very impressed. Really easy to set it up on Heroku. Just click a couple buttons, and boom, I'm there, and I've got this GraphQL
It's
endpoint.
super
Yeah,
nice.
it was. I was pretty pleased with that. So,
I feel
anyways,
like the web is moving towards the button direction. There was like a long time where it's like, we made a CLI, and now it's moving towards, let's just make a button
yeah,
where
for
people
real.
click,
Like
and I'm like, oh my
seriously.
God, God bless. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, for real. I think that that's maybe part of the familiar easy thing too. Is like people are like, oh yeah, I use the Git CLI all the time, and it's way easy. I don't know why people don't use that. Well, yeah, maybe it's easy because you've been using it for like multiple years. But some people really want to have a UI because they don't even know what's possible, and the man page isn't enough for them to figure out like what's the difference between fetch and pull and and rebase and all of that stuff, where if you just have a UI, it just simplifies things a lot, which actually, like, quite honestly, most of our jobs as software developers is turning a spreadsheet
Yep.
into a UI
Yep.
to make things
Get that
easier.
JSON file
So
and make it real fancy.
yeah,
I had this guy in one of my workshops
yeah, yeah.
that it was doing git pull and git fetch like without touching the command line, and he said like, I just don't need the command line. I npm install and everything out of he had a Windows
Mm,
computer, and I was just amazed by that. I was like, I sat down, I was like, I want to see how you do this, because I feel forced to use the terminal. So I don't have anything against the terminal, but it never uses it, and I find that amazing how people like, it was about my age, how people of the same age actually turned out in completely different paths and end up doing the same thing.
yeah, for real. So as we come down on our time here, Sarah, I just want to bring up a couple other things and then we can wrap up. So, on every episode, we like to have a call to action for folks to improve themselves personally or professionally. So, we talked about this, and our call to action for you all, audience, is build something new using something new. So, Sarah, you mentioned using Svelte 3, which is kind of an interesting, kind of newer framework as a compiler type thing. It's pretty cool. Um, and actually, we had a double dose here. Also, remove the word easy from your vocabulary. Do you want to say anything about either of those
I want to
things?
say something that I think is very important, is that if you think something is easy, try to teach it to a junior developer. If they say it's easy, like by junior I mean someone who just finished the boot camp or college, something like that, try and teach them that, and you will get.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good.
Make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good test for whether it's easy. If it's truly easy, then it should be something that
Yeah,
somebody can pick up really quickly, who's not at all familiar.
it's just
If
familiar.
it doesn't make
Yeah,
sense to them, then it's
that's
familiar.
not
It's not
anything.
easy.
So stop
Yeah,
trying to push
very good.
people into thinking that something is easy unless you've actually battle test the fact that it's easy. Unless it's a button. If it's a button and you just click the button, then it's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Cool. All right, Sarah. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to bring up and tell our audience to do or not to do in the world?
No, it's just be good humans. Be good humans. Help the other human trying to understand things when the other human doesn't really understand the thing. Do not judge the other human. The other
Hmm.
human is trying as hard as you are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's good advice. So, Sarah, how do people connect with you online if they want to follow up and keep up with what we're doing?
So I use Twitter a lot. Good amount. I don't know what a lot means, but a good amount. I am Nikita FTW on Twitter with two Ks. The first one was taken by the TV show, so that's something. Also, that's because my parents wanted to call me Nikita, but you can't name Portuguese children names that are not Portuguese, so that never turned out, and now my name's Sarah. So you can follow me on Twitter at
Mm,
NikitaFTW, and that is about it. I have all my links on Twitter, so you can go from there.
awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody. I hope that this was as fun for you as it was for me. And thank you, Sarah, for giving us some of your evening. And I hope you enjoy the rest of it.
I'm going to watch the Avengers. It's
Oh,
going to be
yeah. Have
great.
fun.
Thank you so much for having me,
Cool.
Kent.
All right. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. See you,
Bye.
everybody.